The falling leaves drift by my window, those autumn leaves of red and gold. Hello friends, have you ever downloaded a chord chart for a jazz tune and wondered how we get from those basic chords to what I just played? Well, in this video I'm going to break it down for you. We're going to build it up from scratch in 5 levels of harmony over the song Autumn Leaves. Now, if you're not familiar with the standard Autumn Leaves, I'm going to link to my full lesson on it here because one of the most important things is to have the melody in your ear, just to be able to sing the song. Because we can't play with the harmony, the chords, if we don't understand how it is interacting with the melody. The melody is always the most important part of learning a song. Once we know the melody, we have to learn the basic harmony before we can build upon that. Now, we're going to be doing Autumn Leaves in the key of A minor here, and that starts on a D minor chord. So our first progression is D minor, G7, C to F. And what I want you to be paying close attention to the entire time is tension and release. Do these chords feel like we can stay on them? Are they stable, or do they want to go somewhere? When we play D minor, G7 to C, note that breath of fresh air that we get on C, that release of the tension that we've set up with this G7 chord, because we're going to play more with this later. And that C goes to F, another nice stable chord. We could hang out here for a while if we wanted. And this D minor to G7 is what's called our 2-5-1 progression. This is one of our most common progressions to provide tension and release in a chord progression. And after this F, we go to a B diminished chord. So you know, it's really just that G7th again, without the G. And we know that our G7th is an unstable sound. It's pushing us somewhere, but it's going somewhere else this time as a B diminished chord. We go to E7th, and that still gives us a sense of motion, right? As we resolve to A minor. And this is a 2-5-1 progression, but a minor 2-5-1 progression. So let's play the basic harmony together just to have our ears understand how this should sound so that we can build upon that. 2, 3, 4. D minor, G7, C, F, B diminished, E7, A minor. Now that we can play the basic harmony, let's add upon that. Now, if you've played this song before, these are probably not the exact chord changes that you have played. You're probably used to hearing this as we're going to do it now, with sevenths added. It's a very specific sound, but a seventh in and of itself, when we start adding them to chords other than that 5 chord, the G7th going to the C or the E7th going to the A minor, really start to impart their own sound on it. And our exercise here is to impart our sound on the harmony. So we need to understand those basic triads that we just did first. And then we can add the sevenths and see what it sounds like. This is the easiest way just to spice things up a little bit. Add sevenths to your chords. So we'll play D minor 7th, G7, C major 7, F major 7. And notice how the feeling already changes, that feeling of tension and release that we're always listening for. When we resolve to that C, it's different than resolving to this C, right? Still stable, but elicits a different feeling, and same with this F major 7th. Then we're going to come down to a B minor 7 flat 5. We're just adding the 7th to our B diminished triad, which is the A on the 2nd fret of our G string, to E7, to A minor, always with that 7th in there. And let's listen to how this sounds with just our sevenths added. And this is probably the harmony that you're used to. 2, 3, 4. Now we're starting to get somewhere. So let's mix it up a little bit. Now, every instrument, ukulele included, has its own idiomatic chord voicings, or voicings that we just always hear and identify with this instrument. If we were to look up these chords on a chord dictionary, these are the chords that we would automatically play if we were presented with them, right? So one of the first things you can do to start getting away from this sound is not change any of the chords. We're going to play the same exact minor seventh chords, but we're going to revoice them. We're going to move them elsewhere on the fingerboard, but we're also going to add a second degree to this, which is keeping common tones. Usually when we're changing chords and it's going to another one, there's something similar there. And if we can keep that similarity, it helps aid in the stability between chords. So what we're going to do is take our first chord and change it so it is somewhere else on the fingerboard. Our next inversion of D minor seventh is straight across the 5th fret, right? Already a very different sound. And we're going to go to a G7th, but we can't play this G7th down here. That's a big leap. So we want to find one that's here. But we're going to think first about, do they share any notes, D minor and G7th? Well, they do. The D and the F are shared. So on this D minor 7th, they're here on the C string and the A string. There's our D and F. So we're going to keep those and go to this G7th. Let's listen to that motion. We're keeping those common tones and going to a close voicing. Then we need to go to a C major 7th. That's a big leap, right? So we're going to use a different voicing for it. We're going to ask ourselves that same question. Do G7th and C major 7th share any common tones? And yes, they do. They have a G and they have a B, both of them in there. But they're not going to stay on the same strings this time so that we can voice it correctly on here. We're going to play our C major 7th up here, 5, 7, 7, 7. And then again, we have two shared tones, the C and the E going to our F major 7th. So we're going to keep them. So let's listen to the first chord progression now and hear how we're starting to get away from that very ukulele sort of sound and just starting to think about harmony in and of itself. Keeping those common tones. Now we're going to B minor 7 flat 5. Again, two shared notes, the F and the A. So we're going to use this voicing here. To E7th with, again, two shared tones. You can see none of these chords really exist in and of themselves. They all share something with the other chords around them. So B minor 7 flat 5 to E7th, and then to A minor 7th, sharing this E here. And if you're not familiar with where all the notes are in the chords, that's okay. It takes a lot of time to really understand this and where all the notes are on your fingerboard. But you can look at this very easily, even down here, by just starting to be cognizant of the common tones. When we go here to here, you can look at this just visually and see, well, this and this, these are contained in both of those chords. And starting to do that will get you to start to recognize these common tones and keep them down, which makes changing chords easier, but also makes the motion between them sound smoother. So let's listen to this now with our revoiced minor 7th chords and going to keep the common tones. It sounds like this, 2, 3, 4. Now let's take this one step further. The 7th is the most common extension that we add, but there's a host of other ones. There's 9ths, there are 11ths. We can start altering extensions. We can play sharp 5s. If you're not familiar with these, I'm going to link to a video here on just how basically chords are built and how you can figure out from the chords that you already know how to find any of these chords that we're going to talk about. But we're going to now start adding extensions and alterations to the chords. This D minor 7th, I'm going to add an 11th, which is a G. And why am I adding this? Well, I'm creating a new common tone with the next chord. I'm going to continually look ahead and say, is there anything I can steal from that next chord to maybe increase the tension or increase the release that we get after the tension when I'm listening to this harmony? This D minor 11, very ambiguous. Where am I going? And then as it goes to the G7, there it is. Even the tension itself begins to have this release to it because we're less ambiguous. We are now in motion and going to C. But we're going to change this G7th as well. We're going to make this a sharp 5. So we're going to go D minor 11, G7, sharp 5. Now our 5th is on the 5th fret of the A string. We're going to make this D a D sharp. And this works for two reasons. A, we're targeting this E on the 7th fret. Half step motion, 1 fret away, always sounds very nice. And pushes our ear where we need to go. So if we're trying to create more attention, getting half step 1 fret away is a great way to do that. But on the other hand, by going from this D minor 11 to G7 sharp 5, we're creating what's called contrary motion on 2 of the voices. This 5th fret's going down to the 4th fret, as this 5th fret is going up to the 5th fret. We're hearing this. And creating this moving line, pushing us to the C. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to play a C major 7th. And this is for no specific reason other than I don't really like the C major 7th here. I never have liked the tonality of it whatsoever. I feel like it's way too happy for this song. But it needs to be a C chord. It's still a C chord. So I'm just going to change the extension. Instead of a C major 7th, which sounds very happy and floaty, I'm going to make this a C6th chord, which is still a C chord, but kind of sits between happy and sad. So I'm going to go to the C6th, and then we'll keep the F major 7th just as it is. It's lovely as it sits on the instrument. B minor 7 flat 5, why change anything here? It has a good sense of direction, has lots of tension, let's keep it. And then for this E7, we're going to use that sharp 5 again. And in this case, it's because it's contained in the melody. This is why you need to be familiar with the melody. And then resolve to an A minor 9. We're going to actually keep the B from the E7th. So we don't really get that full resolution at the end that our ear naturally wants to hear. I wouldn't play this as the final chord of the tune, but in the first or second A section, this A minor 9 is a really nice device to say, hey, there's more coming up, and we can still build upon this. So let's listen to this with these basic extensions here, just some extensions and alterations, giving us a new sound, but still pushing the harmony in the same way. Now let's just add one more thing to this. Once we play with our extensions and alterations, we've already messed with the harmony a good amount. But now we can start to link this together even a bit more. Again, providing more tension and more release by using what are called passing chords and passing tones. Either just changing one note in that chord that we're already playing, or maybe substituting an entirely different chord that has some things in common with the one that we're playing. So we're going to start on this D minor 11th and leave it as it is. There's enough going on here. We go to our G7th. Instead of playing a G7 sharp 5, because we're going to hear we're going to use that sharp 5, but we're going to use what's called a tritone substitution. I'll link to my video on chord substitutions here. But this is going to be a D flat 9 chord. Let's hear how that sounds. It's only one note difference from the G7 sharp 5 we were playing. Still pushing our ear in the same direction, but in a slightly different way. We go to C6th, but then we're going to alter this chord. We go C6th and make it a C7th. This is what's called a secondary dominant. We're making a dominant chord to target our next chord, that F major 7th, right? C7th wants to resolve to F. But we're going to add another extension on top of this. We're going to make this an F major 9 chord. If you're on high G, it's much easier to play. You play open 5, 5, 7. And then an F6, 9. So we're going to go. Again, where's that G come from? Well, we're stealing it from that C. We're just creating a new common tone because we said that C is stable, right? It's a landing point for us. So let's keep that feeling going over to the next measure with the F. So let's listen to these first 4 measures of the new harmony. So we have D minor 11, G7th, D flat 9, C6, C7th, F major 9, F6, 9, which is pushing us. Where's that D come from that we just added? Oh, right into our B minor 7 flat 5. It's one of the tones from there. Again, we're stealing from the next chord, and you're going to see this is a very common theme. And then we're going to change our E7 sharp 5 just a little bit. We're going to play an E9 first. Just add another extension there to create motion within the chord. E7 sharp 5, and then ending on our A minor 9. So here's what the progression feels like with all of these extensions, all of these alterations, all of these passing chords and passing tones in here. We're creating new melodies across 4 strings within the chords instead of just thinking about chord shapes. Let's listen to it. I hope you all have enjoyed this lesson, and to be honest with you, I might not play it like this tomorrow because I might want to hear something different. And if you're just starting on your journey of understanding these more complex chords and harmony, it takes time and it takes a lot of practice. And doing exercises like this, taking a tune that you are familiar with and adding these extensions to it, just starting by adding sevenths to the chords, and then maybe just select one note in the chord and move it a fret and see how it sounds. It doesn't matter if it's an F7 sharp 11. If you like the sound of it and it is doing what you want it to do in the harmony, that's all that really matters. But the most important thing is to experiment and see what you like the sound of. If you'd like a worksheet to go along with this, join me over on the Tin Man's Magic Ukulele Club, where we also have an extended lesson breaking down some low G voicings as well as how I'm strumming this in the beginning of the song. I'll see you all next week.
Don't know where